that there's a Q&A option down there as well. So feel free to drop anything that you want to put into the Q&A. Our team will do the best they can to answer those. And as we continue through our time together tonight, we'll ensure that as many questions as possible are answered, and we'll have a lot of fun. So with that, we know that a few people will be jumping in here. I don't know if you guys are ever those ones that are scrambling and you've got a webinar scheduled and you've got all these things going on, and then all of a sudden you remember, oh my God, I've got a webinar scheduled. I don't know if you've been the person that joins like 10, 15, 20 minutes into the webinar and you have no idea what they're talking about. I've been that guy a number of times. Oh, yeah. So, it's, I honor you. The reason I bring that up is I honor those of you who have already joined and you're punctual. We had some folks join right at 8. That was very impressive, 8 Eastern. And I know that we've got folks joining from all over the world. We've even got some folks that scheduled to attend tonight from Zambia, from the country that we're doing so much good in. And that's exciting as well. We've had folks that have reached out to our team who are part of Jeff's team in Zambia. We've got political leaders. We've got royal families. We've got all kinds of fun people that are excited about this project. So we're going to have a good time tonight, guys. Again, not professional webinar people. So I just want to share that right now. So with that being said, here in just a minute, we'll go ahead and kick off and get things going. Let's see.
Just so everybody knows, these are not the rolling hills of Zambia behind us, but it does look nice.
Yeah, that's not our farm behind us, but it is very pretty. We logged on tonight to get the webinar kicked off, and the background was already preloaded. We've got an amazing team, an amazing admin team, and we had a good time with it. Like, wow, that's a nice surprise. So I want to give a huge shout out to our administrative team and our support team behind the scenes. They're probably laughing at us because, again, we are not professional webinar guys. Our team is way better at it, but they put it in our hands to have a great time. So we all get to celebrate tonight our lack of tech skills, and just know that our tech skills have no indication of our business skills. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get kicked off here and have some fun. I want to go ahead and just welcome everybody and first off, thank everyone. My name's Scott Griswold. They put my name just down there, and I think that corner just so I don't forget it. And you'll see that each of our GP partners also have their names by their beautiful shining faces. So I'll introduce our GP partners to you. We've got Brandon Clymer, we've got Carl Steinman, and we've got Jeff Boards. Each of them are giving you a shout out and a hand wave right now. And guys, I just want to thank you. Again, you're putting a lot of trust in us. You don't know who we are. You don't know anything about us. Maybe some of you do, which I appreciate. And I want to just thank you for trusting us with your time. I know that, like I said earlier, many of you are joining from all around the world. For us, it's 8 p.m. Eastern, or a few minutes after 8 p.m. Eastern. And I just want to thank you for trusting us and giving us your time. Each of us have a vast experience in business. We've got experience in a number of different industries, and we wanted to just take a second to give you the opportunity to know who we are. And then we're going to make this entirely about you. We know that you showed up here tonight wondering, Africa. Why is everybody talking about Africa? And why are we bringing it up? Why are you seeing it on your social media feed? Why are you seeing it as you're browsing the internet? And so we're going to cover those tonight. We're going to talk about this with you and that very thing. Now, I want to start, though, with, and I feel like we've been pretty authentic already, but I want to start with pure authenticity. You've been on webinars where there's AI bots that are blowing up the chat feed. There's AI bots that are blowing up the participants, and it makes it look like it's something that it's not. And I want to give you the opportunity to know that, we're not doing that. We're going to stick to just simply 60 minutes of hanging out with you together, just like we're having a cup of coffee. And it's like you walk into a Starbucks one day or a coffee shop one day, and you hear 4 guys in the corner talking about this massive project they've got going on in Zambia. And you think to yourself, hey, I've wondered what's going on in Africa. I'm hearing about Africa. The NFL is talking about sending people to Africa. You've got business leaders talking about it. You've got Jeff Bezos. You've got Richard Branson. I get those two confused, their name, but they're very different, of course. One's ClickFunnels and one's Virgin Galactic. Very different people. You got Bill Gates talking about Africa. What's the big deal? And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So we're really just not looking for anything from you. We're looking to give something to you. We want to let you know about our story, how we got started here, what we're doing. And we realize, I think that my dear friends and partners put it best. We were talking about this the other day. You've heard it said that a rising tide raises all boats. And we know that by bringing key people into Africa with us to come play with us over there, it's going to add value to this nation, this place that we love so much. And so we'll be talking about that a little bit tonight. We're going to talk about how we got started there. We're going to talk again why everybody's discussing this and how did we navigate the possible risks? How did we navigate the crazy landscape that everybody thinks is over there? And how are we entering an emerging market and doing something special in an emerging market where most people are getting shut down, taken out, and having a hard time? So with that, I'll turn it over to my brother Brandon to introduce himself, then Carl, then Jeff, and we'll go ahead and get started. So Brandon, give it away, brother.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate the intro. So before we get started here, a little bit of disclaimer. This is not financial advice. Do your own research. Everything that we say is our own opinion, our own experiences. So please go on, do your own research before you make any investment, and that should satisfy all the attorneys. So Brandon Clymer, Chief Development Officer. So my main job here at Acres Club is the operation part of it. So the piece that gets the machine moving, generating the cash flow, and seeing the opportunities and how to successfully bring those into our operation. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Carl Steinman.
Hey guys, thanks for coming. Carl Steinman, I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Acres Club. Really excited to embark on our first webinar here as we kick off this amazing journey with investing in Africa and developing an amazing project with farming. So we'll get into some of those details a bit. Really excited to have you guys here and welcome. I'll kick it over to Jeff.
All right, good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to say it's an amazing pleasure to be here with my three GP partners. I think one of the main things beyond the topic of Africa, which is a very dear topic to me, be able to share this moment with three amazing people. To me, that's like, couldn't get any better, right? So Jeff Boards, Chief Executive Officer of Acres Club, and it's exciting to be here. Like Brendan mentioned, this is purely educational. We want to start a discussion to see how much value we can add, because we believe there's so much opportunity in the region that the more people we can educate and help enter the space with us, the better the space is going to be in terms of development and economic opportunities for all. So Scott, over to you, and let's get started.
Let's get started, guys. Hey, thanks again. And guys, as each of my partners introduce themselves, I'll introduce myself again, Scott Griswold. They keep me around, I guess, just because of positive energy, maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm blessed to be in the room. And we'll talk more about this story as we continue tonight. Jeff, I want to first discuss how we got started, though. And this is very important to me because I think many people, like myself, have never been in Africa before. They don't know too much about Africa other than the amazing wildlife, the untouched vast landscapes, the exotic energy that just runs through the veins of the continent. And, when you and I first started working together, I had so many questions. When we first, I'll call it play, man. Who wants to work? We do that 9 to 5, right? I'll call it play. As soon as we started playing together in this landscape, I had a lot of questions. And I think it would be so important for you to maybe share your story and how you got started in Africa, how this became near and dear to you. And because that's what captivated me. And it really helped set me at ease and eliminate almost all of the risk that was going through my mind when we talked about doing business together and playing in this wonderful world. So brother, tell us your story, man.
Well, before we start with the story, I think you said it best. Africa is riddled with misconceptions, right? Because when you think of Africa, we've been, I would say, not even brainwashed, but we've been anchored a lot with what a lot of Africa isn't, right? So when we spoke, we connected because I was able to share a genuine experience. And even from the way the map is structured, right? The way we look at the size of the continent, it's even a misconception of how large and how much is there. Yes, there are poverties, but there are also a lot of opportunities. 12 years ago, I got the opportunity, Scott, to enter Ghana, right? Against the advice of all my friends and family, because they were like, why are you going to Africa? Your business is doing good here. Why go over there and then get all the risk? And somehow my intuition kind of nudged me there. And when I entered, I found purpose. And after 12 years of doing this, I've been excited to say that I've been able to not only overcome my own personal misconceptions, but I've been able to grow as a businessman because the region has a lot of opportunities, which means that there's a lot of problems, right? Because as an entrepreneur, when you see problems, when we hear problems, we hear opportunities. So that's why I think having you guys around and seeing the transition from the first questions you usually ask me, whether it's Scott, Brendan, or Carl, to where we are now, where we're actually putting our skin in the game when we're investing in and we're doing something that we're going to change, impact millions of lives in the region, it just shows that education is a critical component towards any investment or any business in Africa, right? Because before we enter the space, the main thing is, what do you know about the space? And for me, my journey has been a very humble journey. I came in the space not knowing what to expect, and the door that opened for me was a door of a lot of limitation, no technology, no internet. But instead of running back to my comfort, to my ease of business, I basically decided to serve the people, simply because when I looked at how eager they were to like absorb what I had to offer, like the first training I hosted in a small town in Solwezi, we had no electricity for 3 days, right? And I was selling at the time software as a service, meaning we needed internet, we needed electricity. But the people kept showing up every single day, even without power. So that to me showed me like, man, these are the people who actually needs my solution, right? So 2 years without any profit. And on the third year, we did make profit. And then I would say the story has been a very inspiring story for me. That's why every time I get someone who's curious, I'm like, come. I remember my best friend, I took him there 7 years ago, and he started his own business. Simply the idea of being there just inspired everyone. Carl, you were there last year, and you can tell the same impact happened, right? You came back an inspired man. So we want to create webinars like this, not simply to talk about how great Africa is, but it's also to inspire people who are interested in learning about the region to enter the region. And I want to take some time to talk about the space, what it is and what it's not from a historical context, Scott. Like when we look at why Africa is the way it is now, and a lot of people are saying, well, everyone is developing. China, as of the 1950s, was one of the poorest countries in the world to now being a superpower, right? And what I always answer to tell people is like, well, Africa was never designed to be developed. It was always meant to be a source of for raw material for the rest of the world. And it was only for the past, 10 years that the leaders of this continent are starting to wake up to say, wait, we don't have to send our diamonds, we don't have to send our chocolate to be reprocessed in Europe to become back and sold back to us. We can do it ourselves. Why don't I hire a Belgian chocolatier, bring them to Ghana, pay them a good salary, and make Ghanaian chocolate? And these are the story that I'm hearing across the entire continent, right? So that started to opening up my eyes to say, hey, we do have an opportunity, and then the economic shift is happening, right? We hear a lot of different stories from the news. We know something is coming, and I think Africa is going to play a major role in the evolution, economic evolution of the world. And we think we are proactive in this process because I think Scott and Brendan, you guys gonna talk a little bit more about the fund that we were launching. But the main thing that we want to talk about is we are rightly positioned right now to enter Africa. I could tell you 10 years ago, the cost of internet has gone down by a quarter, like meaning what was $1 is now 25 cents. So infrastructures are growing, and the ease of doing business. A lot of countries are redesigning their bureaucratic processes. What would take like 4 months to register a company is taking 2 weeks now, which is incredible. So these are the changes that you see in the region because the countries are realizing we're opening for business. Yet when a foreigner comes in, if it's too hard, what is that? You pack your bag and you go home, right? I've seen too many people come in with eagerness. They're coming in with a drive to say, man, I'm going to come and change Africa. I'm going to bring my product in Africa. But a lot of time, the bureaucratic processes sometimes create discouragement. So a lot of those leaders now are creating policies that are changing that. Another thing that we want to talk about is the demographic and change. Africa is supposed to be one of the fastest growing population in the world. By 2050, we're looking at 2.5 billion people, which is massive. 2.5 billion people, guys, which means that food shortage, infrastructure, whatever industry you're in, you can bring it to Africa and you can grow. Of course, the entry point is never going to be easy, but the margin of return is going to be well worth it, right? So you can look down in terms of like the shift from raw material production to manufacturing industrialization. That's another shift that is happening across. We would see countries like Ethiopia, Rwanda. Matter of fact, I saw an article recently. BMW is going to actually bring one of their manufacturing plant in Rwanda. So these are some of the shifts that you see happening now. So cars are going to be starting manufactured. Ghana basically just launched their own make vehicle. So you see that shift, right? We're not buying, we don't want to just buy, consume stuff from China, from Europe. We want to also create stuff and have you consume some of our content, right? So if you are a coffee maker out of Seattle or out of a small farm here in the US, take your product to Africa, because not only do you have cheap labor, but you have an eagerness of people. Like there's a high unemployment rate. People need jobs and they're affordable. So these are the things that I kind of want to emphasize on impromptu, right? And beyond that, we have infrastructure development, meaning Africa's massive, but there's not enough infrastructure. So we look at opportunities for people in construction. Brendan, that's your bread and butter.
Yeah, no, it's you break a great point. We were actually talking about that the other day, how, it's a new frontier. And what's great about this is that unlike the US, you constantly hear in the news about our infrastructure's crumbling, the lead pipes, bridges, all these huge packages, because they were built 100 years ago versus now we have an opportunity as this nation builds, it's building with today's technology, which is supposed to last another 150 years.
Right. That's right. So again, taking all of these expertise from, let's say, the developed world and bringing them into a space that's like starving for it, to me, it's like a no-brainer. You look at blue oceans, right? Any business we start here in America, the amount of competition we're going to be facing is not only the cost of entry is too high from a financial standpoint, but the competition is also very stiff. Over there, there's not a lot of competition. So you can enter with your product, develop it. Matter of fact, I can tell you, when we enter in Africa, we grew. Astra Learning is the company that I enter in Africa with. And we grew to 8-figure company because of the service we deliver in the region. And I could say right now, majority of our revenue comes from the region. So when someone say Africa is poor, it depends on how you look at it, right? It could be poor for you, but if you come in with a mindset of solving problem, it could be a very lucrative space to have fun with.
Jeff, I think you're hitting so many key points, and it's worth mentioning as well. Guys, I say all the time that my brother Jeff is so humble. He's not going to talk about the mastery that he's got because he is just so humble. And when I talk about what we're doing in Africa, I really want to point out, because he just breezed over a couple things that are so near and dear to my heart, I know, and the rest of our team's hearts. Jeff's been there for 12 years. And for me, that's what really got me excited about this opportunity to come play in this arena with him. Is he's navigated the landscapes. You heard him talk about how he paved the way and paid the price when he first got started. And then he formed a team around him. So he and his team have amazing relationships with the tribal chiefs, with the royal families, with the political leaders, with everyone and anyone who would be involved in making this possible. And you've heard it say that a team is everything. It's all about the people that you surround yourself with. And that's why tonight we were just like, hey, we're going to have a meeting anyway. What if we just open it up to anybody that wanted to hang out with us? And again, I want you to know we're not professional webinar people. We're just having a meeting, and we wanted to invite you to it, kind of like a town hall, if you will, and just give you the opportunity to see what we've seen, a very snippet of it, and kind of experience some of the lessons and the wisdom that we've gained, so that should you decide to come play with us over there in Africa on our project, or in general, to add value to this landscape and to add value to these people, which again helps everyone involved, we want you to be able to navigate those pitfalls as well. So again, we're not looking to take anything. We're purely looking to give. And I know that out of a meeting like this, there's going to be someone who says, hey, I want to get involved with you guys. And we're only looking for maybe 5 or 10 people. That's it, that want to come play with us on a high level. And so I just want to throw that out there. And Jeff, I wanted to honor you because, again, your vision was to educate 100,000 children at no cost to them. As you might have heard Jeff skip over just briefly, because again, he's very humble. He's got business in, I think, 26 different countries. He's educated and helped educate children through what's called ed tech, education software and education technology. And that's how this whole thing got started. And so we'll get more into that. I wanted to honor you, my brother, and really bring that back home and talk about how you saw the strategic importance of doing business in Africa, which you just covered beautifully, and how that all got started. So I want to thank you and just really wrap that in a bow for anybody who's listening. So
There's so much we want to talk about, but we want to just start and then we'll develop the relationship over time and as far as the conversation. But thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to jump briefly to opportunities in Africa. And I've got two of my dear brothers here to talk about this. And first, though, I want to bring in Carl to talk about how he got started on this journey and also how we got started on this journey. And I'll kind of tag team with him, of course. But I'd love to just share with anyone listening how this all got started. You've heard Jeff's story, but then how does Carl come in? How does Brandon come in? How do I come in? And what are we learning? And why is our project so incredibly robust and exciting surrounding the opportunities that we could go in a million different directions, Carl? I mean, we've talked about it for months. We've talked about everything that we can do in Africa, and it came down to two key things, right? It came down to land development and agriculture. So my brother, I'll kick it to you, man. Tell us how you got started on this journey. Tell us how you've fallen in love with this incredible landscape, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott. And yes, it has evolved quite a bit. When Jeff brought this first idea to me, it had to be back in maybe January, maybe it was even a year before then. I mean, even like a few months before then, but we were in a mastermind group together, and the four of us are all in a pretty amazing group of people called the Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership Group. And we've been studying the work, and we share incredible, commonality and values, of course. And when Jeff brought this idea, we were just spitballing, and it started very different than where we ended. And Jeff just convinced me, like, you have to come to Africa with me. And I took a trip, and absolutely, because I'd never been to Africa. I'd been to only a couple of countries. Africa as a continent, and no country even close to it. I mean, maybe on my honeymoon 20-something years ago, I was in Europe. That was as close to Africa as I ever got. And when I traveled there, it blew me away because my expectations were so different. It was only from what I was able to gather from the TV, mainly around charity and starvation and underserved markets, and there certainly are. And we walked this vast land with the tribal people that Jeff was very, very close with, and his large team of people that were operating in Zambia. And I saw lush green land. I saw rivers. It was pretty amazing. We didn't see too much wildlife on the property until we did a little bit of a retreat by the southern part of around the tourist areas, which we did get to see some really cool wildlife and animals like elephants. But I fell in love with the people. The one thing I learned when I was there is that the people of Zambia are very faith-based. I myself are very faith-based. So there was just camaraderie, and we had dinner with a large team of people there, and it just felt like home. And I got back on a plane, and we, Jeff and I said, all right, let's work on this. And I decided, you know what, this is a new career choice, and left the corporate world after 20-some years in corporate, and decided to embark on this new opportunity. And where we've landed with real estate, because that's my background as well, and developing food security for people, and really having a major contribution element just gets me excited. So it's all come from there. Hopefully that answers your question, Scott.
You nailed it, brother. And it's so funny because when Carl says January, he's not talking about a few months ago. He's talking about well over a year ago. And yes, it's so funny because, I met these wonderful folks through Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership, as Carl said. And just this last last August, we were at what Tony hosts called a Business Mastery. And Jeff and Carl walked up to me through introduction of a dear friend. And I'd known Brandon from skiing together and doing finance trips and all kinds of fun stuff. A good friend introduces Jeff and Carl to me. And it was one of those things where we were raising money to help save children in the Congo through a nonprofit. We rescued 50 kids. It was amazing, straight out of human trafficking. It was incredible. And I started to walk away from Jeff and Carl. I said, guys, I'm busy. I got to come back to you. And I got maybe 10 feet away. And have you ever had that like intuition? Any of you guys ever had that intuition that's listening in where it's like, stop? And that's what it. I walked 10 feet away and I had this like, stop, turn around, go back and talk. I'm like, okay. So I go back to Jeff and I said, Jeff, we're supposed to talk now. And I said, I don't know why. And he says, man, I've got tens of thousands of acres in Africa and we're just having some fun. And instantly I'm like, wow, what would it be like to create a conscious super city where we show people what you could actually accomplish? When you think about like when the Wild West was settled and you think about like, once upon a time, Denver was just land, right? Like we all know that. Like once upon a time, Yellowstone, you've all seen the show, was just land. And cool, on that show, you get to see the development of it. But like, what would it be like to have the opportunity to shape a new world? And so this is what started going through my mind and my heart. And this got me so excited. Now, bear in mind, guys, I was raised, I don't know if any of you were raised like this. Don't leave America. It's not safe to leave America. I've never been out of the stinking country. I never left America. And then you hear that the universe has a sense of humor, right? Here we go. We go on this trip to Zambia just a few months prior with Tony Robbins' adventure team. And we did everything in Zambia. And so when Jeff said that he was doing business in Zambia, I just had to laugh. And I said, I'm in, brother. I'm in. So Carl, I want to talk about some of the things that got us excited about the opportunity, because immediately when I said I'm in, I started to get this like, oh my God, what did I just agree to? Because it's like, wow, land gets taken in Africa. People disappear in Africa. There's so much corruption. We hear all these things all the time, right? So I want to talk to you specifically, and I'd love to hear from you why we're so excited about doing business the way that we are. What made us feel at ease with doing business there? I mean, we've got so many things, the ZDA Act, local ties, farming needs, the war in Ukraine going on, people starving, really making an impact. I'd love to just hear your perspective, brother. Kick it to you.
Absolutely. Well, I would say all of those things. I mean, the fact is, that was one of my early questions, and of course, known Jeff for some time, and he's has a successful business. For me to enter Africa, I'm a little bit more conservative, and it's okay. Well, what about land seizures? What does this mean? So it's all in the data and the research, and what we've discovered is that there is a massive appetite for investment out of the government of Zambia. So through the ZDA Act, there is certainly plenty of, and we've posted it to our deal room so you can see it. Ultimately, it's land protection. They are protecting foreign investment. They're trying to attract over 27 billion of foreign investment, a total of 36 billion in investment, with a large presence in Africa, in agriculture. And that's ultimately what we've embarked upon. Looking at the fact that the Zambian population is set for a massive increase. They are in the continent. They are leading the charge in terms of population growth. Africa in itself, Jeff referenced, there's going to be over 2.3 billion people in there in the near future. Zambia is going to be a big part of that growth. And then, of course, going there, and we were able to meet with some of the government officials as well while I was there in Zambia, which was very helpful for me to get a very clear picture as to, okay, is this true? Are they attracting foreign investment? Of course, you can read about China investing in Africa, and most of what I've been able to read is that there's been a appetite for more of a mining and strip mining and more about taking. And our model is all about producing, giving, and being a vehicle for growth. And I believe that's why this opportunity has been presented to us through Jeff's relationships with the tribal people, because he's been able to help hundreds of thousands of students and people of the land, to help them be able to have a sustainable life, and ultimately that's what we're doing now with food security. So hopefully that answers your question, Scott. If there's any little details that you'd like me to expand upon, please let me know.
No, you're doing great, brother. Thank you. And guys, that's the key here that's what got me excited as well. It's like with the ZDA Act, Zambia saying, hey, we want $27 billion of outside investors to come in, and we're going to protect them because we want to increase our GDP. We want to create sustainable development. We want to create infrastructure. And we know that by welcoming the world in, that's how we do it. Again, with Jeff's local ties and our team's local ties, that was huge. And so as we see opportunities, that's what we're discussing here. The opportunities that got us excited was, okay, now farming needs. We all have heard about the war going on in Ukraine. We all see people starving to death. You realize that used to be the breadbasket of the East. And so we saw this amazing opportunity to say, what if we created the new breadbasket of the East? And then eventually teach people how to bring conscious, sustainable, regenerative practices in agriculture to the world, which Brandon's going to cover next for us, and really be able to capitalize on what would it be like to do it right? What would it be like to create an environment where people are not scared to eat the food that's put on their plate? What would it be like to do it consciously and sustainably? And so we saw the differences in land investment opportunities there. Yes, like we've talked about, and how people lose land because they buy up traditional land. We'll cover this in a little bit. They buy up traditional land, not knowing that there's a process to keep the land from being taken. We started to see huge opportunity for returns for our investors, agricultural advancements that we could take advantage of that many people around the world are not, because they're just trying to turn a profit. They also see we saw the expected impact in that region, both positive and negative. And like my brother Jeff said, hey, where there's problems, there's opportunities. That's how we think anyway. We can make a difference. And so, yes, with our risk management strategies, addressing the common concerns and how they can be mitigated, I believe that we've made a significant difference in that region. And as Carl said, this is what got us excited when we joined the team. So we wanted to share that with you. Now, again, I've been holding back on this because it's probably the most exciting part to me. Guys, feeding people. Imagine what it would be like to fill people's needs. When we know that when people start to go hungry, they become very survival based. They become animalistic, and rightfully so. They're just trying to take care of themselves and the people that they love. And so what would it be like to help this emerging market have their base needs met? What would it be like to feed people and have an opportunity to have a piece of that and get significant returns on that investment? So as you're thinking about coming to play in Africa, these are the things that we were thinking about as well. So Brandon, I'll turn it over to you, brother. Talk to us about agriculture in Africa and how we've made a huge impact already and what we'll be doing moving forward.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So as we've gone over, I mean, coming into any emerging market, not just Africa, not just Zambia, it's important to find the need, right? And so, my role on the team was, okay, we've got this land, and now what do we do with it? And looking at it, it's like, okay, so this area, Zambia, is a landlocked country. It's surrounded by 8 different countries. And as we did the research, we started to find out, like, hey, there's a very significant need for just basic food. And looking at that, I mean, in the past years, it's so scarce that the government will actually not issue permits for export, meaning that they won't let you export to any of the surrounding countries because they need it so bad. And they'll even supplement the cost and pay more for grain than what the market demands just to encourage that farming. So seeing that opportunity said, okay, the revenue is there, like the need is there. Okay, the supply isn't. Now, everybody says, well, farming, there's nothing sexy about that. It's not new. It's been going on for 1,000 years. And you're right. In the US, we are masters at it. We are the best in the world. We can grow corn better than anybody else. We'll get 5 tons an acre versus anywhere else in the world, you're getting 2 to 4 at best. And so everyone's like, why is that so good? Why is it so good? Well, if you think about it, in the US, you're going to pay $10,000 to $12,000 for an acre of land. Now, that's a big upfront capital cost when you talk about 1,000, 10,000, 25,000 acres. And then you've got the cost of machinery, and then the seed, the fertilizer, harvesting, all those costs that come each year. And then you've got your sale price, which is a global world market. And the US will even buy up excess surplus from farmers to keep demand. However, in other emerging markets, you often don't have that same barrier to entry, which is the cost of the actual ground. So for instance, in Zambia, the land that we are working on, we get for $650 an acre. So you're going from 12,000 to 650. Now you think about how much that saves over 10 acres or 100 acres, times that by 25,000. Okay, that's a lot of dollars and cents that you can save on the capital cost, but yet your return is a world market. So somebody in Iowa is getting roughly the same cost that you're getting over here. Now, that in any market is going to get you amazing returns. And so whether it's in Zambia, whether you're doing farming, you're doing anything, always finding that little niche and understanding why it is. So for instance, a lot of people in Zambia don't have the knowledge, not only the knowledge of how to farm it, but large scale commercial farming takes big equipment. That's a big capital cost. And with that emerging market, they don't have it. So we're in a unique position, especially with Jeff's knowledge and being able to come into a country as foreigners and actually purchase land, which is nearly impossible, able to come in here and get that as a foreigner and then start working it to generate a great cash flowing asset. So a couple other things that we've learned as we've gone through this is the vertical mobility of everything. So right now we're looking at just maize, which is corn here in the States, soybeans, and winter wheat. But that's just the first step. As it grows out and we build out, we're only farming 15,000 acres. We've got 10,000 just sitting there. And so as it grows, you can get into more and more. So they alluded to the city that's being built, the new capital city near our land. As that city is built, more and more population is going to grow, more need is going to grow, and therefore you're going to have more manufacturing and other things down the line that can produce more and more returns. So as you have a growing middle class, you're going to have more and more needs for things like beef, for instance. So as the appetite for beef grows, that's going to take more and more cows. Well, what do cows eat? Corn or maize, and they eat a lot more than humans do. So that's going to be a huge demand to get that T-bone steak that growing middle class is a hunger for, just like we have here in the States. And so that's a unique opportunity because the biggest company, Zambeef, in the country doesn't have enough to supply their own needs. Not only that, you've got a population that needs it and the surrounding country. So it's a very unique way to get a great return with an age-old technology. So, looking at that, there's a couple other case studies that we've seen as we've done our research. So Carl's got a unique one over in is Colombia? Is that what it is, Carl?
Yeah, in Colombia, it's a company called Green Coffee Company, and their whole thesis, and they've been in operation for several years now. But what they've done is they've embarked on acquiring farmland in Colombia and existing coffee growing farms, which in Colombia, the average farm acreage was maybe 5 to 10 acres. So they're very small producers. Yeah, very, very small, which there's a similarity in Zambia. There's not too many industrial farmers at all. I'd say that most of them are, either personal production or 5 to 10 acres, very similar. So there's not this industrial, scalable type of operation. And I love these guys because of what they've been able to do. Over the course of time, they've built an amazing business of farmers. And when they've acquired these farmers, they've actually the workforce, they've now become the largest producer of coffee in Colombia, which is like the capital of the world's coffee growers. They've gone into this region. They've acquired slowly these different coffee farmers. And now these folks have retirement plans. They have benefits. They have medical. And they've got the most attractive workforce now in the entire region. They've become the largest grower. They've now grown into the supply chain. So we're fascinated by what this group has done in Colombia, and it started with acquiring real estate, that's very stable. It doesn't have too much movement or around world markets. And then they're producing a commodity crop, which is a great way to hedge against inflation, right? So in high inflationary times, you've got a commodity that's going up or down with inflation or deflation. We're in more of an inflationary market. We're looking to produce a commodity crop, very similar thesis. So you've got stable asset, hard asset of owning land. Then you've got a cash crop that's going to produce income on that land through a commodity product. So some really exciting things, very, very similar. Yes, it's in Latin America and not in Africa, but I would say we're using that as a great model, and we've connected with these guys too. So we're hoping to do a retreat down in Colombia too to learn a little bit more, because I think what they've been able to do in terms of benefits, I think they're a great company to model. And what's awesome is that they've shared with us companies that they've modeled as well. So it's the same reason we're trying to share as much information about trying to draw some investment and attraction to this region that we've all fallen in love with. We've put in our own real money, and we're putting in a lot of time and energy to make this thing happen.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Colombia, like you mentioned, it's not Africa, but it's a great emerging market. And we'll put a link in some of the information that goes out after this of what that operation is, so you can read up on it. They got a cool couple of podcasts they've been on. It's a super awesome story that Carl alluded to about them bringing up that middle class, standardizing it, creating that co-op of farmers to where everybody can pitch in together. So, we talked about earlier, rising tide lifts all boats. And that's exactly what that's happening there. So like one case study that we look at in Zambia that I alluded to earlier is a company called Zambeef. And this is very cool. It's a company that we really follow and love. And so their principal product is beef. And they own a bunch of grocery stores and meat processing. And they're the largest meat processing and grocery store chain in Zambia. It's one of the largest in the Southern Africa area. So they not only feed Zambia, but they also export beef to the surrounding countries. So it's a very unique thing. So they are currently just with their crop, they're doing around 50,000 acres in pure crop farming, and they still don't have enough to suffice all of their needs just for what they're growing for themselves. Now they make sure that they're lifting up other farmers. So what they'll do is they'll buy from other farmers, just like the Colombia operation. And what's unique and what we really love about that company and what we're modeling after is how much they're benefiting the community. So building schools, donating to soccer clubs, and making sure that they have a good, stable middle class, and everybody there. It's a good environment, and it's also unique because just like us, it's foreigners and locals, and it's a great way for them to feed off each other and learn and grow together. And so we'll send you more information on Zambeef, and not only are they doing great things, but for us, it's a huge opportunity because their main farm is only about an hour and a half away from where our grow is, and they need our stuff, which is unique because they don't have enough of it now. And so as the demand for beef grows and grows and grows, we see a great symbiotic relationship, not only for the products we produce, but also for bettering the community and really helping that grow. Because, not just one massive company that's bringing a higher standard. Now you've got multiple companies bringing that higher standard. And so it starts to become the norm. And so that's one of the things that we're really excited about. And I can't tell you enough how excited we are to have all of you here just to learn and listen and talk about how great Africa and Zambia and just all these emerging markets, as the world changes more and more, people aren't seeing just opportunity in Western Europe and America. There's opportunity everywhere. And just like back in the 1700s when it was the new world of America, now the new world is Africa. So with that, we'll take a couple questions. I know that we've got some that have written in here. I don't know who has this. Scott, I think, do you have those questions? We can go ahead and start to pitch some of those out.
I do. Yeah. Great job, guys. And thank you so much for covering those different items, because folks, as you tune in and you're thinking like, how would I even get started in Africa? Well, the one thing Africa has a lot of is need for agriculture and land to create agricultural opportunities, right? And so as you just heard Brandon talk about, the opportunity there was exactly as we saw also. And so it's like, hey, if we're going to create $1 billion fund down the road and create a conscious super city, we've got to start somewhere simple. So our MVP became very evident, minimum viable product became very evident. We got to feed these people. And so that was phase one. It's like, hey, what would it be like to create the most amazing agricultural opportunity there? And that's where we're starting. And that's why we're excited to open this up to folks and educate folks who want to come play as well. And I love how you guys covered modeling success. Tony Robbins says, if you're going to do anything right, you want to first identify who's outstanding at that thing and then model them. You want to get a coach. We've got a lot of coaches. We've got a lot of people helping us in the background. Our team is vast and very well educated. We've also got people who are doing it right. And we wanted to see also outside of Africa who's doing it right. And so I'm so grateful that you both covered Zambeef and you also covered the Green Coffee Company. So well put. I want to transition into the Q&A, guys. And we had a great question come in from Nick. And he said, what challenges do investors typically face when purchasing land in Africa? And Jeff, that was the first question I asked you as well. I'm like, Jeff, is land in Africa, man? How do we keep people from trying to take it from us? How do we keep people from messing up our plans? So maybe you could cover that. Again, Nick says, what challenges do investors typically face when purchasing land in Africa? Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, so we always talk about risk is perception, right? Because even in the US, if you don't pay your taxes for 2-3 years, whatever land you own to get repossessed, right? So Africa has had some history where people had their land repossessed, and it's just simply because of the not so good history we've had with the colonizing and then land being taken. People felt like they went about repossessing their land in the wrong way. We see it happen in Zimbabwe. We've seen some stuff in Uganda. But I can tell you right now, enough case study was created from this where the nations of Africa, modern Africa, knows that if there is an issue, it's better to cooperate and move forward than trying to basically retaliate from a vengeful standpoint. So most of the farmers in Zimbabwe, for example, who got their land seized are now thriving in Zambia, right? So that's why we chose Zambia as one of our places, because we understood that, again, Africa is a vast continent. There are risks. There are places where that the land tenure part are not so secure. Do your research. But there are a lot of opportunities across multiple countries. So because we're in Zambia, I'm going to kind of keep referencing it. Once you get your land title, Zambia has a very sound legal structure. There's no way anyone can come and repossess that. So we have two types of land: traditional land where a chief can come and bestow upon you, but without the title, anytime that land can be repossessed if a new chief is reinstalled, right? So just like here, if you don't have your title of your property or the deed, it's not your property. So once you get to the titling part, then it's free and clear. In our case in Zambia, our titles are for 99 years. So we know for 99 years, and it's auto renewal, we can have to actually apply and get it renewed. And there's no case so far where the government has denied a renewal so far, considering how young most of these countries are. But if they do take the land, there's usually compensation, fair compensation. Let's say they want to put key infrastructure on the land that you possess. This is something that even here happens in the US. If we have to build roads, if you own it and there's a road that has to go through it, you'll have to sit down with the local government to discuss fair compensation. So it's all perception of risk. So far, a large ownership of my own asset is sitting there in land in Africa, and I feel quite safe. So to answer you, get your land titled and you'll be safe.
I'm so glad you covered that too, because Jade just asked a beautiful follow-up question and said, is the investment a lease right or leasehold, or is it true ownership to the land? And we were just talking about this in a recent meeting as GPs, how places all over the world do this, and it's significantly more common than you think. And Jeff just covered the leasehold. And Jeff, I think we were talking about like parts of Europe do this, Hawaii does this. I didn't know that. That was a new development for me. So maybe you can cover like how common this is, even though we might not know that.
Yeah, well, for example, in Poland, I can't own land in Poland. Like I have a vineyard in Georgia. It's not under my name. I have to put it somewhere else. So a lot of countries, because of foreigners coming in and abusing the ownership part, right? And that's why in America, even though anyone can come and buy our land, but it's really never ours because there's a tax tied to it. So And a lot of people have that misconception of ownership because none of us really own anything. Because the moment you stop paying our taxes, it goes back to where it belongs, right? So we have places like Hawaii. There are areas in Hawaii that are considered traditional areas where only native Hawaiians can own those lands. So in the case of Zambia, 99 years, once you get the title, it's yours, and no one can come and take it over overnight. And again, we have cases around Europe where foreigners cannot even own land, and there's nothing you can do basically, right? So like, for example, I mentioned Poland. In Poland, if I want to own an apartment, I can buy an apartment, but actual own dirt, impossible, unless you get married or you find a partner you can trust to hold on to your title.
This is very important. This is
Poland.
This is exactly what I asked you, Jeff, when I first got started with you. And Nick, Jade, great questions, because that was the exact same that I just asked. Because again, as Jeff said, there's been cases in Africa where it didn't go well. And what we're hearing of mainly, guys, I want you to really focus in on this. What you're hearing of in these situations is people who didn't do it right. Guys, there's billionaires who understand the value of Africa who are trying to come in and buy up all this land so that they can strip resources from it. We're doing the exact opposite, and that's a question that'll come up next. But before I cover that one, I wanted to specifically talk about this because it is very important. That leasehold is so key because when you title the land and you've got support from the tribal families, from the royal families, and from the political powers that are there, there's really nothing that can be done to try to take it away. It's a 99-year leasehold. It's on auto renew. Very, very simple. And with the ZDA Act, $27 billion that they're seeking to build infrastructure and build out the economy in Zambia, they will do everything to protect us. So it mitigates the risk in a beautiful way for us. A great question just came in. What role does the Zambian government play in facilitating foreign land investment? So in other words, what I'm understanding from this great question is, how do we leverage the Zambian government to help us as we buy, and how would our attendees and listeners facilitate that land investment to protect themselves as they do so?
Yeah.
Jeff, a great question for you.
Zambia is open for investment. You mentioned there's acts now. Parliaments are busy creating policies to make it easy. I remember when I first started going to Zambia, we had to pay $50 to pay for the visa. And no matter how many times you go, you keep paying the fee. Now Americans are entering for free, which is exciting. So it's just a sign to show that they want us there, right? And if you invest enough money, I believe it's about $500,000. I think they changed the number, either $250,000 or $500,000. You can get a license. There is a process you have to go through to get this business license. That gives you a lot of leeway where you can enter the economic zones. There's a few economic zones around Lusaka that gives you 5-year tax incentives. So the government really wants you there. They understand that the relationship they've had with China is not sustainable because when China comes into a land, they either enslave you with debt, right? And what they're looking for is more like a partnership, a true partnership, where they're enticing investors like ourselves or business people like ourselves to come in, bring our resources, bring our skills, and to help Zambia thrive. So the government is definitely for it. And I know, based on my conversation with the Minister of Commerce, for example, he's busy looking for people. So if you want to go into Zambia specifically, the government is waiting for you.
That's great. It's so funny too, because when we were there, boots on the ground, it was so cool because we did a lot of wonderful work for the kids through nonprofit initiatives and such. And the leaders there came up to us and said, hey, listen, we appreciate the money, but we want thought leadership. We want the things that you know how to do to come here and help us create fair trade, create sustainable, ongoing development and infrastructure. And we were the ones that rose to the challenge, and we're inviting you to do the same, whether it's with us as one of our investors, helping us to play and build and create magic, or even beside us, not even a part of our project. That's okay too, as long as we're going there together to create magic. That's what it's all about. And that leads me into the last question that just came in. The question was, how are you adding value to the local community? And guys, I'm so grateful for this question because this actually came ahead of time before the webinar. And I'm grateful for those who responded ahead of time. This is so key because I know for the four of us, this is everything. And for our team behind us, this is everything. The contribution and the care and the love that we're bringing to the ground and to the people there is so valuable and vital. So Jeff and even Brandon, I think you both have some wonderful things you can add to this question. How are you adding value to the local community and the people And Jeff, you talk about this all the time. Brandon, you were talking about this just yesterday about giving a fish versus teaching to fish. So Jeff, go ahead then, Brandon.
You can give a man a fish and feed him for a day, or you can teach a man a fish and feed him for a lifetime. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing that you see. So a lot of people, including myself, when I first thought of Africa before I went there, I saw those commercials. Donate now, give $1, feed somebody. And it's like, man, what happens when I stop giving my dollars? You don't see those kind of same things in the States. And that's where it's coming into and teaching them a skill. So we alluded to earlier that a big issue is in what's causing all this demand and need is that the skill level isn't there versus what we have in the States, because we've been doing this for 100 years. And so as we grow, and similar, we brought up Zambia, who's doing a great job of it. It's teaching and having that mentorship program. So for instance, working with John Deere to come in and train people how to use the equipment. How does it work? How do you set up things? And so we have a unique opportunity with Jeff. And because he has Astrio Learning, part of one of our initiatives is creating an entrepreneurial program so the locals can really learn how to capture and become entrepreneurs. Because at the end of the day, to really gain wealth, you don't do it by punching a clock. You do it by taking risks, being an owner, and finding opportunity. And we're excited to be able to teach that, because who loves more than anything but to teach others and to see them prosper? And that truly fills our heart. And Jeff, I know that you know better than anybody. You've been giving there for a decade. So I'll go ahead and let you jump in on this as well.
No, you put it perfectly, Brendan. Africa receives so much donation, but sadly, 5-10% goes towards the cause, right? So, and what I've seen happening in the region is we're creating handicaps, right? And because if we don't channel the resources we're giving to most of these developing countries, we're creating a society or generations of people who are always looking for a savior, right? And unfortunately, we're past that point. We know it doesn't work. Enough of our tax money has gone into many of these countries, and we have nothing to show for it. So as we created our team, one thing we all agreed on is we're going to create a everlasting legacy. And that's one thing when we look at our value alignment, beyond just our need to thrive and grow as a business person, but our value also couldn't be compromised. So we agree that as we enter the space, we're going to create a long, everlasting legacy, meaning that we're going to train people, allow them to stand on their own 2 feet, and proudly look at the world and say, hey, we're here to contribute and add value, right? So that's one of the things I want to put an emphasis on, because as we build in the continent, we want to make sure that we're also empowering people, whether it's education, whether it's skills development, and whether it's also building entrepreneurs who are going to build the infrastructure to help us thrive. So I just want to end it with that, Scott.
Well said, brother. And that's the key, guys, is that if you're going to go into this space, again, you can tell from the entire conversation, we strongly encourage and invite you to work with the local community, build the local community. Don't take. That's where people have gone so wrong in the past, is they come in and they just seek to take. We came in with a very different question. What can we do to come in and give? How can we add value? I think if in anything in life, if we lead with that question, how can we add value? You just can't go wrong. And that's what we've done since the first moment we arrived. And that's what we'll continue to do, no matter who's playing along beside us. That's what we're all about. And that's what we invite you to come join us to be a part of. Jeff, if you have any closing thoughts, I'd love to leave it with you, brother.
Well, first of all, it was exciting. It's my first webinar that I'm hosting in this, and I'm glad we got to do it together. And I look forward to creating more and more content so we can have more and more people to play with. As you said, the bigger the crowd, the more fun it gets, right? So what I want to close with is we're going to send an email, a link with the white paper. We've done a lot of research in the region. So those of you who either want to come play with us or who are interested in creating your own business or venture in Africa, our white paper should give you a good guide on what we're doing there. So we'll send you a link after this. And we look forward to seeing you soon, because we're going to host another webinar in the next 2 weeks. We'll share the dates. And thanks for coming, Scott, Carl, Brendan. Such a pleasure. And let's make a difference.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great one. Thank you so much.